Providence Municipal Court. A corporate executive in a $2,000 suit walks into Judge Frank Caprio's courtroom with the kind of arrogance that fills a room. Wait, that's not our story today. Today's story is different. Today's story is about a 16-year-old girl who will do something so shocking, so unthinkable, that it will become the most talked about courtroom moment in American history. Because what happens in the next few minutes won't just be about justice. It will be about mercy, redemption, and a decision that will restore your faith in humanity itself. Before we reveal what happened, I need you to hit that subscribe button right now because we're racing towards 600,000 subscribers, and 97% of viewers still haven't subscribed to Judge Stories. If this story about second chances, compassion, and the power of forgiveness moves you, leave a comment below with your city because by the end of this video, you'll understand why this moment went viral across America and why Judge Caprio's response shocked the entire nation. Tuesday afternoon, 2:45 in the afternoon. Judge Frank Caprio sits behind his bench, reviewing files for what seems like another routine day in Providence Municipal Court. The courtroom is moderately full, people waiting for their turn, some nervous, some bored, most just wanting to get through their citations and get back to their lives. The air carries that particular weight that courtrooms have, a mixture of anxiety, resignation, and the faint smell of old wood and floor polish. Outside the tall windows, autumn light filters through, casting long shadows across the polished floors. The bailiff's voice cuts through the quiet murmur of conversations. Madison Pierce. Citation for shoplifting. The heavy doors at the back of the courtroom creak open, and a teenage girl enters. She's 16 years old, wearing a gray hoodie pulled up over her head despite being indoors, faded jeans with deliberate rips at the knees, and scuffed sneakers that have seen better days. Her face is partially obscured by the hood, but what you can see shows a hardness that shouldn't exist in someone so young. Dark circles under her eyes suggest sleepless nights. Her jaw is set in defiance, and she walks with the particular slouch of someone who has decided the entire world is against her and she doesn't care anymore. But it's what's in her ears that Judge Caprio notices first. White earbuds, the cords dangling down inside her hoodie, and even from the bench, he can hear the faint pulse of music leaking out. She doesn't remove them as she approaches the podium. She doesn't straighten her posture. She doesn't acknowledge the court or the judge or anyone else in the room. Her right hand stays buried in her hoodie pocket, and her eyes remain fixed on some point on the floor about 3 feet in front of her. Judge Caprio watches her approach with the same patient expression he brings to every case. He's seen thousands of people stand where Madison Pierce now stands. Some scared, some angry, some remorseful, some defiant. But there's something about this girl that makes him pause, something in the way she carries herself that speaks of deep pain rather than simple teenage rebellion. He clears his throat gently. Miss Pierce, welcome to my courtroom. I'm Judge Caprio. Before we begin, I need you to remove your earbuds and give this proceeding your full attention, please. Madison doesn't move immediately. For a long moment, she just stands there, as if she hasn't heard him or has decided that compliance is optional. The courtroom watches. A woman in the third row shifts uncomfortably. A man near the aisle exchanges a look with his neighbor. The bailiff takes a small step forward, hand moving unconsciously toward his belt. Then, slowly, with deliberate insolence, Madison reaches up and removes one earbud. Just one. She lets it dangle against her chest, music still faintly audible. The other stays firmly in her ear. She finally raises her eyes to look at the judge, and the look she gives him is pure contempt. This is stupid, she says, her voice flat and cold. I shouldn't even be here. The gallery reacts with quiet disapproval. Whispers ripple across the benches. An elderly man shakes his head slowly. But Judge Caprio's expression doesn't change. He's dealt with hostile defendants before, but something about this moment feels different. Something about this girl suggests that beneath the attitude and the defiance, there's a wound that hasn't healed. He doesn't know it yet, but in approximately 8 minutes, this routine shoplifting case will transform into something nobody in this courtroom will ever forget. Because Madison Pierce isn't just angry. She's broken. And broken people do desperate things. Judge Caprio opens the file in front of him, his reading glasses perched on his nose, and reviews the charges with the careful attention he gives every case, regardless of how minor it might seem. Miss Pierce, he begins, his voice still warm despite her hostility, you're here today regarding a shoplifting charge from CVS Pharmacy on Maple Street. According to this report, you were cited for stealing $87 worth of makeup. The store manager pressed charges after you became aggressive when confronted. Is that accurate? Madison shifts her weight from one foot to the other, the music still leaking from the earbud in her left ear. She shrugs, a gesture so dismissive it borders on mockery. I took some makeup. Big deal. That store makes millions. They're not going to miss a few lipsticks and some mascara. Her tone is acidic, each word delivered with the kind of bitterness that seems practiced, rehearsed, as if she's been preparing for this confrontation and has decided that indifference is her best weapon. Judge Caprio removes his glasses and looks at her directly. Miss Pierce, stealing is a serious matter regardless of the value of the items or the financial status of the store. The law doesn't have a threshold where theft becomes acceptable. But more importantly, I'm concerned about something else I see in this file. This is your third shoplifting offense in 8 months. The first 2 were dismissed with warnings due to what the report calls traumatic circumstances. Can you tell me what's been going on in your life? Nothing that's any of your business, Madison snaps back. The second earbud finally comes out, but not out of respect. She yanks it out with visible irritation, as if the judge has just asked her to do something impossibly difficult. Look, just give me community service or whatever. Fine me. I don't care. Let's just get this over with so I can leave. The prosecutor, a middle-aged woman with a kind face who has been standing quietly to the side, steps forward. Your Honor, if I may, there's additional information the court should consider. Security footage from the CVS shows that when the store manager attempted to stop Miss Pierce at the exit, she didn't just become verbal. She physically shoved the manager, a 62-year-old woman, causing her to stumble backward into a display. The manager declined to press assault charges out of sympathy for Miss Pierce's situation, but the incident was violent. A low murmur runs through the gallery. People lean forward slightly, their interest piqued. This isn't just a shoplifting case anymore. This is a pattern of escalating behavior, and everyone in the courtroom can sense it. Madison's face flushes red, but whether from embarrassment or anger, it's impossible to tell. She wasn't hurt, Madison mutters. She barely even stumbled. Everyone's so dramatic. Judge Caprio's expression grows more serious, but his voice remains measured. Miss Pierce, I'm going to ask you again, and I'd like you to answer me honestly. The file indicates you live with your grandmother. Where are your parents? Madison's entire body tenses. Her hands, which had been hanging loosely at her sides, curl into fists inside her hoodie pocket. Her jaw clenches so tightly that a muscle jumps in her cheek. That's none of your business, she says again, but this time her voice cracks slightly on the last word, a hairline fracture in her armor of indifference. Actually, it is my business, the judge says gently. When a young person appears before me multiple times, when I see a pattern of behavior that's clearly escalating, I need to understand the context. Where are your parents, Madison? The use of her first name, spoken with genuine concern rather than authority, seems to hit something inside her. For just a moment, her face crumbles. Her eyes go glossy with tears that she immediately blinks back, forcing them down with visible effort. Then the hardness returns, even stronger than before, as if she's punishing herself for that moment of weakness. They're dead, she says flatly. Happy now. Car accident 2 years ago. Both of them. Gone. Is that what you wanted to hear? The courtroom goes absolutely silent. Even the rustling of papers stops. The woman in the third row who had been whispering to her companion presses a hand to her chest. An older man in the back removes his glasses and wipes them slowly, though they don't appear to be dirty. Judge Caprio's expression shifts immediately. The judicial authority softens into something more human, more compassionate. I'm very sorry for your loss, Madison. I truly am. That's a terrible thing for anyone to experience, especially someone so young. When did this happen? 2 years ago last March, Madison says, and now her voice has gone completely flat, emotionless, as if she's reciting information that has nothing to do with her. They were driving home from my aunt's house. Drunk driver crossed the center line. They died instantly. That's what everyone keeps telling me, like it's supposed to make me feel better. They died instantly, so at least they didn't suffer. But nobody talks about the people left behind who have to suffer every single day. Judge Caprio leans forward slightly, his hands folded on the bench in front of him. Madison, I can't imagine the pain you've been carrying. Losing both parents at 14 years old, that's trauma that would break most adults, let alone a child. I want to help you, but I need you to work with me here. Can you do that? Madison looks away, her eyes scanning the courtroom as if searching for an escape route. I don't need help. I need people to leave me alone. Everyone wants to help. Everyone wants to talk about my feelings. Nobody can bring them back, so what's the point? Before Judge Caprio can respond, the bailiff approaches the bench and whispers something. The judge nods, then looks back at Madison. Miss Pierce, I see from the file that your grandmother is here today. She's requested permission to address the court. Madison's head snaps up, her eyes wide with sudden panic mixed with fury. No, I told her not to come. Why is she here? She doesn't need to be here. The heavy doors at the back of the courtroom open again, and an elderly woman enters slowly, aided by a walker. She's perhaps 73 years old, thin and frail, wearing a floral print dress that looks like it's been carefully pressed for this occasion. Her gray hair is pulled back in a neat bun, and her face, deeply lined with age and worry, shows an exhaustion that goes beyond physical tiredness. This is the exhaustion of someone who has been fighting a battle she doesn't know how to win. The bailiff helps her to a seat in the front row of the gallery, and the courtroom watches in respectful silence as she settles herself, placing the walker carefully beside her. Her hands tremble slightly as she folds them in her lap. When she looks up at her granddaughter, her eyes fill with tears, but there's love there too, stubborn and unshakable despite everything. Madison sees her and something inside her seems to crack wider. Why is she here? Madison demands, her voice rising. I told her not to come. I told her I didn't want her here. This has nothing to do with her. Judge Caprio's voice remains calm. Miss Pierce, your grandmother has every right to be here. She's your legal guardian and she cares about what happens to you. The grandmother raises a trembling hand. Your Honor, may I speak? Judge Caprio nods gently. Of course, ma'am. Please tell us what you'd like to say. The elderly woman takes a shaky breath, gathering her courage. Your Honor, my name is Dorothy Pierce. Madison came to live with me after my daughter and son-in-law died in that accident. She's all I have left of my baby girl. Her voice breaks on those words and she pauses to compose herself. I raised 3 children of my own. I thought I knew how to handle teenagers. I thought I could help her through this. But Madison, she's so angry all the time and I don't know what to do anymore. Shut up, Madison suddenly screams, her face contorted with rage. Just shut up. You don't know anything. The bailiff takes a step forward, but Judge Caprio raises his hand, signaling him to wait. Madison, the judge says firmly, you will not speak to your grandmother that way in this courtroom. But Madison is beyond hearing reason now. Something has been unleashed, all the pain and fury she's been holding back for 2 years suddenly pouring out like poison from a wound. She's not even my real grandmother, Madison shouts. She's just the old lady who got stuck with me because there was nobody else. She doesn't want me. Nobody wants me. They're all just pretending because they have to. The gallery gasps audibly. Multiple people shake their heads in disapproval. An elderly woman in the third row wipes tears from her eyes. A man mutters something under his breath about respect. But Dorothy Pierce, instead of looking hurt or angry, just looks heartbroken. She reaches out a trembling hand toward her granddaughter. Madison, baby, that's not true. I love you. You're my granddaughter, and I love you more than anything in this world. I know you're hurting, but please stop pushing everyone away. Judge Caprio stands, which is rare, and immediately commands the attention of everyone in the room. When judges stand, people know something significant is happening. Madison, he says, his voice carrying authority but also genuine concern, I understand that you're in pain. I can see that you're drowning in grief and anger and you don't know how to process it. But what you just said to your grandmother, a woman who opened her home to you, who has been trying to help you through the worst thing that's ever happened to you, that was cruel. And I won't allow it in my courtroom. Madison's chest heaves with rapid breaths. Her eyes dart around the room like a trapped animal. You don't understand anything, she says, her voice dropping to something raw and desperate. You sit up there in your fancy robe, acting like you care, but you're just like everyone else. You see a file, a case number, another messed up kid to lecture and then forget about. Nobody actually cares. Nobody actually listens. The judge takes a measured breath. Then help me understand. Talk to me, Madison. I'm listening right now. Madison laughs, but there's no humor in it. It's a bitter, broken sound that makes several people in the gallery wince. Talk to you? What's the point? You're just going to send me to juvie or give me more community service or make me see another therapist who's going to ask me how I feel about everything. I'm done talking. I'm done with all of this. Judge Caprio tries once more, his voice softer now, almost fatherly. Madison, your grandmother is here because she loves you. These people in this courtroom, they want to help you. The system isn't your enemy. We want to see you succeed, to see you heal from this trauma. You don't have to carry this pain alone. Something in those words, perhaps the gentleness of them, or perhaps the fact that they touched too close to the raw wound inside her, causes Madison to snap completely. Her face contorts with rage, tears streaming down her cheeks now, all pretense of indifference shattered. "I don't need help," she screams, her voice cracking with emotion. "I don't need any of you." Her right hand, which has been buried in her hoodie pocket this entire time, suddenly emerges. In it she's clutching a small stone, smooth and round about the size of a golf ball. It's a decorative paperweight, the kind that sits on mantels in living rooms, painted with swirls of blue and gray. Later people will learn that it came from her grandmother's house, that Madison had taken it that morning, though whether she planned to throw it or simply carried it as some kind of talisman of her anger, no one will ever know. In a moment of pure rage and desperation, of accumulated grief and pain that has nowhere else to go, Madison hurls the stone toward the bench with all the strength in her teenage arm. The courtroom seems to move in slow motion. Someone screams. The bailiff lunges forward, but he's too far away. Dorothy Pierce cries out, her hand reaching toward her granddaughter in helpless horror. The stone arcs through the air, tumbling end over end, and strikes the corner of the judge's bench with a sharp crack that echoes through the chamber like a gunshot. It ricochets off the polished wood, strikes Judge Caprio's gavel, sending it spinning, and then crashes to the floor where it bounces twice before rolling to a stop in the center of the courtroom. The silence that follows is absolute and suffocating. Nobody moves. Nobody breathes. It's as if time itself has stopped, frozen in the moment after an unthinkable act. Madison stands with her arms still extended, her face suddenly drained of all color as the reality of what she's just done crashes over her like a wave. Her mouth opens but no sound comes out. Her eyes go wide with horror, not at the judge but at herself, at what she's capable of when the pain becomes too much to contain. "Oh my God," she whispers. "Oh my God, what did I do?" The bailiffs rush forward, their training kicking in immediately. Two of them flank Madison, their hands moving to restrain her, while a third positions himself between her and the bench as if she might attack again. The courtroom erupts in chaos. People are standing, talking over each other, some moving toward the exits, others pressing forward to see what happened. The court reporter's hands hover frozen over her keyboard, her face pale with shock. The prosecutor stands with one hand pressed to her mouth. And Dorothy Pierce, poor Dorothy Pierce, has buried her face in her hands, her thin shoulders shaking with sobs. But Judge Caprio sits perfectly still. He hasn't moved since the stone struck. His hands remain folded on the bench in front of him, his expression unreadable. Slowly, deliberately, he looks down at the stone lying on the floor of his courtroom. Then he looks back at Madison, who is now trembling violently between the two bailiffs, tears streaming down her face, her earlier defiance completely shattered. The bailiff closest to the judge speaks urgently. "Your Honor, should we place her in custody? We need to call this in. This is assault on a judicial officer. That's a felony. We need to process her immediately." Judge Caprio raises his hand, the same gentle gesture he used before, but now it carries a weight that silences the entire room. "Wait," he says quietly. "Just wait." The bailiffs look at each other, uncertain. This is unprecedented. A defendant has just committed an act of violence in open court, and the judge is telling them to wait. Every protocol, every procedure, every instinct they have is screaming at them to take Madison into custody, to remove her from the courtroom, to protect the judge and everyone else present. But Judge Caprio's hand remains raised and they hesitate. The judge slowly stands and descends from the bench. This is extraordinarily rare. Judges almost never leave the elevated position that symbolizes their authority. But Frank Caprio walks down the 3 steps, his robe swishing softly, and moves toward the stone lying on the floor. The bailiffs tense, ready to intervene if necessary, but he waves them back. He bends down, his knees creaking slightly with age, and picks up the stone. He turns it over in his hands, examining it carefully, and that's when he sees it. On the other side, painted in delicate letters that have started to fade with time, is a single word in soft purple paint. Hope. Judge Caprio holds the stone up to the light, turning it slowly so the word hope becomes visible to everyone in the courtroom. His voice, when he finally speaks, is barely above a whisper, but in the absolute silence, every word carries to the back row. "Miss Pierce," he says, still looking at the stone, "where did you get this?" Madison, her face blotched with tears, her whole body shaking, can barely force the words out. "My grandmother's house. It was on the mantel. I took it this morning." The judge's fingers trace over the painted letters. "Does it mean something?" Madison nods, a sob catching in her throat. "My mom painted it. Before the accident. She made it in an art class at the community center. She gave it to my grandmother for her birthday." Dorothy Pierce's voice rises from the gallery, weak and trembling. That stone was the last gift my daughter ever gave me. She painted that word because she said no matter how hard life got, we should never lose hope. She believed that so strongly. Judge Caprio turns the stone over again in his hands, and something in his expression shifts. The judicial authority, the courtroom protocol, all of it seems to fall away, leaving just a man holding a painted stone and standing before a broken child. You threw hope at me, he says softly. Madison's legs seem to give out and she sinks to her knees right there on the courtroom floor, the bailiffs catching her arms to keep her from collapsing completely. I don't have any hope left, she cries. I don't have anything left. Everything good in my life died in that car 2 years ago, and I've just been pretending to be alive ever since. The courtroom watches in stunned silence as Judge Caprio does something that nobody has ever seen him do in 35 years on the bench. He kneels down beside Madison, setting the stone gently on the floor between them. His knees protest, his back aches, but he lowers himself until he's at her eye level. When I was 12 years old, he begins, his voice steady but filled with emotion, I lost my mother. Cancer. I watched her fade away over 6 months until there was almost nothing left of the vibrant woman who raised me. And when she died, I was angry at the world. I wanted to break things, hurt people, make everyone feel what I felt. Madison looks up at him, her eyes red and swollen, shocked that this judge, this symbol of authority and order, is sharing something so personal, so painful. My father, Judge Caprio continues, he didn't lecture me. He didn't punish me for my anger. He let me rage and cry and break things in the garage for weeks. But one day when I'd exhausted myself, when I had nothing left, he asked me one question. Just one. If your mother could see you right now, would she recognize the boy she raised? The question hangs in the air between them. Judge Caprio reaches down and picks up the stone again, holding it out toward Madison. Would your mother recognize the girl throwing stones in a courtroom? Madison takes the stone with trembling hands, clutching it to her chest. No, she whispers. No, she wouldn't. She'd be so disappointed in me. She'd be ashamed of what I've become. Judge Caprio shakes his head gently. She'd be heartbroken to see you in so much pain. But ashamed? No. You're not broken, Madison. You're wounded. There's a difference. Broken things can't be fixed. Wounded things can heal. Slowly, with effort, the judge stands and offers his hand to Madison. She takes it and he helps her to her feet. The bailiffs step back, still watchful but no longer restraining her. Judge Caprio looks at her for a long moment, then returns to the bench. The transformation back to judicial authority is visible, but something has changed. The entire courtroom can feel it. Miss Pierce, he says, his voice now carrying the weight of the law, by law, I should remand you to custody immediately. Assault on a judicial officer is a felony. You could be tried as an adult. You could go to prison. Madison nods, tears still flowing, but she stands straighter now, ready to accept whatever consequences come. I understand, Your Honor. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. The judge pauses, letting the moment stretch. But I'm not going to do that. The courtroom erupts in murmurs. The prosecutor stands. Your Honor, with all due respect. Judge Caprio raises his hand again. Let me finish, counselor. He looks back at Madison. I'm going to make you an offer that I've never made before in 35 years on this bench. You will not be charged with assault. The shoplifting charge will be suspended. Multiple people gasp. The bailiffs exchange looks of disbelief. Dorothy Pierce's hands fly to her mouth. But Madison just stares, unable to process what she's hearing. Instead, Judge Caprio continues, you will report to this courthouse every Saturday for the next 6 months. You're going to work with me. Madison's voice is barely audible. Work with you? Every Saturday you will sit in this courtroom and observe. You will see people who've made mistakes. You will see people who've lost hope. And you will help me understand them because, Madison, you understand pain in a way I never could. And maybe, just maybe, you can help me reach people the law can't touch. You will also continue therapy, non-negotiable. You will complete 100 hours of community service at the Youth Grief Counseling Center. And most importantly, you will apologize to your grandmother, not just with words but with actions. If you complete these terms successfully, your record will be expunged. You'll have a clean slate. But if you violate any part of this agreement, you will face the full consequences. Do you understand? Madison can barely speak through her tears. Yes, Your Honor. Thank you. Judge Caprio's expression softens one final time. Don't thank me. Earn it. He gestures toward the gallery. Now go apologize to your grandmother. Madison turns and walks slowly toward Dorothy, who rises from her seat, arms already open. When they embrace, Dorothy holding her granddaughter as tightly as her frail arms allow, the courtroom erupts in applause. It starts with one person, then spreads like wildfire until everyone is standing, clapping, some wiping tears from their eyes. This isn't just justice. This is mercy. This is redemption. This is what happens when the law remembers that behind every case number is a human being capable of change.